that one out. Hello, once again here we are at Richie's Repair Shop, or my garage, on how to fix your Mercedes. Today I'm working on is a noise that was coming from the front of the car. Sounded like a roaring sound as you drove. The more you drove, the louder it got. Okay. And what I ended up doing was taking off the wheel and the brake, and I discovered that the wheel bearing was bad. Okay, and I had to replace that. Now this is the wheel bearing, okay, that goes in the car. Fits inside this race.
So what again?
Okay, this is the wheel bearing. Okay, this is the unit that fits inside your router. You have one on both sides, and I want to show you what's going on. I've already checked the inner bearing. The inner bearing's fine, just in case. I did buy it. Okay, so I'm going to put the seal back in, but basically the bearing rides inside this race that's basically inside your brake rotor. This one was making a lot of noise. So the more you drove, the louder it got, which basically is not a comfortable feeling, especially if you lose one on the road. Now, the other point is, anytime you go to a automobile parts store, you order your ask for a part for your particular vehicle, they'll give you one that's in stock, and what you find out is that the one they gave you is not the same as the one that came off the car. This is the one that came off the car. This is the one they gave me. This actually fits inside there, which means this seal is too big, it's not going to fit. I would have a problem. So that goes back. Fortunately, by not damaging this one, I can put this one back inside the wheel, okay? And you also want to be very careful not to bend it, because this is a grease seal that holds the grease around your bearings. And you just put it in and you tap it in slightly. Don't force it, just walk around until it fully seats.
One end of it is higher than the other.
What?
Of the toaster.
You have to use a end of a chisel. Just heat it all the way down. Make sure it's fully seated. Okay. That's fully seated. Now, we have enough grease in there that's going to, I've already packed that bearing. Now, I'm going to take this wheel, put this back up here. Now, what I want to do first off is I want to take a little extra grease. I'm going to slap it on the spindle of where this is going to go. Okay? You don't have to have an abundance, but enough is okay. Okay. Now, I've already got bearing and grease in here, so I'm going to just reach inside here where the other bearing is going to go. Pay attention. Okay, and I'm going to lift this up and slide that on to the vehicle. And you make sure it's seated. Alright, now your other bearing, the front bearing, I've already removed the old race because it was worn out. This is the new one that I packed in grease. You make sure that you squeeze the grease in between all the bearings. Okay, because usually there's a tool to do that, but the old common way is put grease in your hand and rub it between each side of the bearing. You got little openings, squeeze it in there and around the outside the bearing. Once you do that, you can take this and you can slide that in right over the spindle, and you got a nice fit. Okay? Now, the other thing is the lock nut that came off of the vehicle goes on. Now this is in reverse of what I had to do for this particular car. This is the 1988 Mercedes-Benz 560 SEC. And now the thing about this, which most people will probably make a mistake, they think the tighter the better. Well, that is not the case. That is what destroys your bearings. Okay? What you want to do is you want to make it snug. Okay? You want to make it snug to where it's a easy spin, which I'll show you in a second. Let me clean this grease off my hands. It's actually kind of nice. It kind of takes the dirt off and everything else too. Kind of It's like a line on that, if you will. But what we're going to do is clean that off, and basically the wheel should spin. You should have no noise. Okay. When I took that off, okay, now this is not just the part that I need to do. What I need to do also is to make sure that that nut is just tight enough. I use channel locks because this is not a regular nut. Okay. And I just give it an extra little turn. Okay. And check, make sure that I still have my free spinning. Okay. If the wheel doesn't spin free like that, okay, it's too tight. Okay. Case in point, if I tighten this up a little bit more, right now I just put too much pressure on the bearing. Okay, so when I turn it, it stops right away. That's too much pressure. So what you do is you take it and you back off a half turn. Okay, you're snug enough and free enough that the wheel is not going to shimmy. It's not going to come loose. It's nice and quiet. Now, on this particular model, most of your General Motors cars and Chevys, they have what they call a cotter pin that actually goes through the nut to lock it in place. This one has an Allen wrench, so basically we're going to go ahead and tighten that up and lock this down. You must remember to lock it down, because if you don't, it'll walk off and you will lose your wheel. Okay, so we're going to lock it into place. Okay, once you get it locked down, change the other end. Okay, now it doesn't have to be too tight, because eventually you may have to take it off again. And then you lift up again and you got a nice tight. Okay, when you lock it, you start at 6 o'clock. Okay, so you start at 6 o'clock and you'll end up at 3 o'clock when you pull up, which means you have the right position for the right amount of tightening. That way it's not going to work its way loose, it's not going to come off. Now, this wheel also has a sensor that goes in the middle of the hub. This is part of the warning system for the vehicle. It lets you know that there's something wrong with the car. This goes inside and just right inside there, just like that. Okay. Okay. So that basically, that little sensor right there rides on the inside of this cap. So if there's anything, you have wires attached to the warning system, says, okay, there's something wrong with my wheel. Okay. That is the last part of putting this on. So this goes on, and again, we slightly tap it. That's now on. Now, the other thing that's most important is you don't want to have grease on your rotor, because it will get on your brake pads and you'll have a stopping problem. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to easily clean that up. What I use is the same thing I use to clean the carpets for this vehicle. It's carpet clean spot cleaner. What it does, it dissolves the grease. The grease is on there. Now most people use an acetone or something like that to wipe this off. This works really good because I can spray this on here and wipe this down, and it pretty much evaporates right away, leaving a grease-free surface. And you also have to wipe the other side too, because you have your brakes on the other side where your caliper's going to ride. You got to make sure that's all nice and clean. Okay. So now we have removed the grease from the surface of the rotor, okay, which is most important. Can you see that? Okay, good. All right, so we got a clean surface rotor. And now, if you're wondering, why do I have a box of tiki torches or lights on, patio torch lights on under my wheel? I'm using that to hold my caliper up so that my brake is not just hanging in the air, which may inadvertently break my brake line, and then I'll have a different problem. I always try to support that. Now the rotor has two nuts that comes on, or the caliper has two nuts that goes on the back of the wheel. The easier way to do this is I can reach behind and do that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this wheel so it's making easier access for me to get to that. All right. So bear with me for a second. Let me turn it out. Pause it a second. Let me turn.